The average grand piano has approximately 12,000 parts. And as a technician, you have to know what's the reason for that. The action, it's called the action because that's where the action is, the moving parts. The keyboard, all that's involved with that, there's about 5,000 to 6,000 parts in just that part alone. Apart from the strings, the massive wooden frame, the rim of the piano, which is what is visible from the furniture aspect of it. The way the rim of the piano is built, first of all, the seasoning, I should start at the very beginning there. The seasoning of the wood is absolutely vital. In the major factories like Steinway, Yamaha, Busendorfer, Baldwin, the top makes that we have, the wood is usually seasoned for a good 3 years outdoors before the wood dare touch it. Then it's brought indoors, and depending on the wood that is being used for the different parts of the piano, whether it's hard rock maple or poplar for the lids of the piano, so it can vary to how they reduce the moisture content. It's usually between 4 and 7%. Anything less than that, and they've got to be rather fanatical about it. You can't stress that enough because it will depend greatly how stable the piano will be. The rim of the piano, depending on the size of the instrument, like a concert grand or like a piano that we're standing with, the Yamaha C7, this particular piano, very fine instrument, and it is made up of, the rim would be made up of hard maple, roughly about 3/8 of an inch thick, layer upon layer, until they get the dimensions, the thickness of the rim. It doesn't look too thick at the visible part, but if you put your hand underneath the rim, it's much, much thicker, several times thicker than what the visible part is, where the lid is settled on. Because that plays a huge part in how stable, and then the beams underneath, there's a lot of pine that is used in piano. They have the sounding board. The finest sounding boards are generally made out of, in practically all cases, over 90% of the cases, are made out of very chosen, not maple, but dear me, some spruce. And they have to be fanatical with the sounding boards. It's made up of different widths. That is because you cannot use a slice of wood that has any knots in it. The knots are where the branches of the tree meet the trunk of the tree. And they have to cut the wood to make sure that there's no imperfections whatsoever. Now there is a slight crown to the sounding board. For instance, Steinway's sounding boards for quite a number of years now are thicker in the center and tapered where it fits around the rim of the case of the piano, purposely, and something like a drum head. It's floating. Nothing has to touch that except the bridges and the strings. It's got to be free from any contact all the way around the area of the square inches of the piano. And they've got to be somewhat fanatical about that. Then the bass bridge and treble bridge, the long bridge that goes from the high end of the piano at the treble end all the way down into the bass section of the down to the bass corner of the piano, then the bass string is attached too. And that is the high point. Any stringed instrument, to get the tension through onto either the belly of the violin, guitar, whatever stringed instrument we're talking about, or the sounding board on the piano, the bridge, where the strings cross over the bridges, that bridge is the high point of the string. I'm exaggerating, of course, but you look at a violin, for instance, that's much higher. On a piano, it's approximately the width of a nickel, is the best way for a layman to understand. You can't have it too high, you don't want it too low, because you would get nothing but buzzes. You wouldn't get the full potential of the tonal quality of the piano. That is a very, very fussy part of the construction of the piano. Everything in a piano has to be spot on, really. You see the difference in length of strings. The first note on the piano has a much heavier gauge of wire. Also, it is the longest string on the piano. Now you go up to the extreme note in the extreme treble. In other words, the length of the string is actually longer than the length of the piano, because it is overstrung. The early pianos were, everything was in straight lines. Then they discovered, within the same area of the rim, they discovered that if they overstrung the bass, which gives you a much better quality in the bass, the longer the string within that area, the better the quality of sound, which is, after all, what people want, what we want as technicians. But the speaking difference between the first note and the 88th note is fantastic. The speaking difference up in the extreme treble is maybe about this much, whereas in the first string, usually the two last sections of the piano have a pressure bar like so. From here down, you have what we call the A-graphs. The strings are attached to a tuning pin. There's a pin for every string on the piano, and it leaves the tuning pin, passes over this felt. There's a certain amount of resistance there. It crosses over these bars up here, or through these A-graphs. Now from the A-graph, or from this pressure bar to the bridge on every given note, that is the speaking distance of the strings, you see. Musical gauges, the thickest wire on many pianos, and even in the bass, is usually between 18 to 20 musical gauges wire, as we talk about. It varies every few notes. You may have 4 or 6 strings, a certain gauge. You see. This is what gives you, we can control the pitch better. You couldn't put this gauge wire up here, for instance. It just snap. If it's strictly tuning, we will, this is an A4 fork, and can you hear that? That's 440 times per second. We have to be careful how we look after our tuning parts. We don't want it to vary. This fork is made in England, and as a lot of them are, and they tune them. They can be filed inside to vary the pitch to bring in spot on. Usually over there it's usually about 68 degrees Fahrenheit when they manufacture them. Anyway, so we're careful how we handle our tuning forks, but now when you listen to that, there is just a very, very slight waver. Now we can count how far off the piano is. It's not that we're counting 440 times per second. That's pretty well impossible. But we can tell the variance, how far off it is, you see. Very difficult to explain. There's a lot of hard work involved in it, understanding and patience. If you don't have patience in this business, you've no business being in the business. You'll never be a success at it. But just the patience of learning the job. So many will come into the business and they didn't realize what was involved and give up. Or a few that keep doing it and they're no business doing it.